Welcome to the Texas Law Dog Podcast, where we will get you off, literally and legally. Your weekly true crime podcast from the criminal defense lawyer's perspective. Join the Texas Law Dog and co-host Akash as they venture into the nitty-gritty of the criminal justice system and explore how there may be practicable solutions to cleaning it up. Any and all content produced should not be construed as formal legal advice, used for educational, marketing, and solicitation purposes only. Some information may be factual. All guests have agreed to use their real names and likenesses. All views and opinions expressed by the Texas Law Dog reflect the opinions of Texas Law Dog LLC only and should not be construed as formal or informal legal advice by a practicing attorney. The Texas Law Dog will not get you off, literally or legally, despite what he may claim.
Couple other notes I wanted to go over before we got into the meat and potatoes. Oh, my grandparents listen to the podcast, and I guess my family, I never told my family that I got a DWI, so surprise. I didn't, they didn't know, which I guess, like, my parents, like, they were like,
they know everything else. You talked about a lot. You talked about a lot.
Yeah, but it's like the people that support me that were actually going to listen to it, I got to listen, and they got a couple of nuggets of truth in there. So no, I am not perfect, and yes, I have screwed up, but I think that my overall point of that story is going to be a really good lesson. We're not going to have our first guest this week. We're going to have him on hopefully next week, and it will hopefully be my attorney for that case. So he will give you some really good insight. I also forgot to mention, importantly, I got thrown off track in the first episode, but I mentioned Gerald Goins, which is that Houston HVD narcotics officer. I didn't mention what happened, which is that him and his SWAT team of narcotics police officers raided this couple's house and they killed them. So there are people dead from that case. And I'm actually going to try and have their attorney that represents the family on the podcast on a future episode, wherein he will explain kind of everything that went down in that case. So that's something to look forward to. And as far as how it ties into police accountability, everything like that, we're gonna get all into that stuff. And I mean, it's gonna be kind of a slow ride, it's if we're doing an hour a week, you're not gonna get everything right away. You're just gonna have to keep tuning in. Like today, we're gonna go over sort of how I use jury selection tools and kind of give you an inside look in that and how you pick a jury and how you ask the questions. But we're also going to talk about a case that I had this week where I almost had to handcuff myself to my client outside of a bench and get dragged into the courtroom. So that has been my week this week. I didn't flash myself to anyone on Zoom, which has been a market improvement from last week. But I think that this has been a really stupid week. So I can't wait to tell you guys all about it. Let's get into it first, though, with some I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about what's coming up on the podcast. I told Akash, first segment alert. Wait, we need a noise. No. We have a jingle. Put the jingle in right here, and then I'm going to create the text for it right now. It's going to be like, this is the phone notes segment where we discuss the notes in our phone to make the podcast a better podcast. And if you just want to repeat that every time, you can do that, but make the video and audio a little bit better. First note that I have is fuck daylight savings time. Your thoughts?
Bro, my first impression of daylight savings time is whenever we were in Austin for a Halloween weekend or whatever. That first Halloween weekend is the night everyone goes to 6th Street. So we would be out. So I actually went to A&M. So we would visit in Texas.
Oh, God.
We would visit
Austin.
Austin.
Even a real school?
No, not really, but they had the street was amazing. 6th Street was
all my
Sixth Street was
friends,
awesome.
I love all you very, very much.
But yeah, we would stay out, and then it would be 1 o'clock, and we just get hammered for the last hour as always, and then at 2 o'clock it would go back to 1 o'clock. So in that respect, we had a whole other hour.
Oh yeah, you get an extra hour at the bars.
In that respect, it was
and the bars get an extra hour to make money. So that is, back in my drinking days, that was the best. You get an extra hour to drink every year. Give me a break. There's nothing better than that. So, but now it just fucks with my body. And like, honestly, at this point, I think I don't want to go full coincidence theorist, but I think that there's no need for it anymore. So I don't know why we still do it. I think we should have daylight longer. I think the people that are in charge want to make it so that it's like dark at 6 and then not 8, which is absurd. I don't know why people would want to feel the need to be depressed all year. So we need to look into this, people. If I have any daylight savings experts out there, give me a. Do we even have an email? Did you set up an email for the podcast? I mentioned in the second episode that if people wanted to reach out about their addiction issues, they could, and then they don't have any way to reach me.
They can reach out on they can reach out. Yeah, you're right. We'll post an email.
Yes, I am right. I'm always right, Akash. What is our email address?
I mean, I'll let you know once I make it. We don't have it yet. It's info or
what am I paying you for?
Support at the Texas.
Have you heard of Gary Delabate? Have you heard of him?
You're not paying me for this.
I'm gonna.
You should start paying. You should start. We can talk about that later.
Yes, he turns the tables on me. Oh, I fucking love you, brother. Okay. Yes, daylight savings is fucked. Number 2, true crime. Yes, we are. We will be talking about true crime. It's not going to be politics. I just needed to shame everybody to get a feeling of who I was. And honestly, I think that was good. I think that what I said in the second episode was important, but I'm not going to harp on it forever. I am going to go over a little bit of the election stuff while I'm doing my meme presentation. But for the most part, I think that we can leave it at that. Either the country doesn't appear to be unifying, so all I can suggest at this point is to stop watching the news and live your lives and try your best you can to realize that it's not going to affect your day-to-day that much, even though they're telling you that it will. So, I mean, that's all I can really say is just go out there and focus on making yourself successful. Focus on what you can control, people. We will get back into the true crime part of this. And I mean, obviously we're going to get into some fun cases. I've got a buddy who's been harassing me to come onto this podcast because he is a West Point grad and he wants to get into military true crime. So we're going to do an episode on that. There's a Netflix show that I just watched with my girlfriend that's pretty awesome. It was called Wilderness of Error on Hulu. So if you haven't watched that, check that out. It's about a 1970 case that involved a army doctor, and he brutally murdered his wife and 2 children. And the alternative theory is that it was done by this hippie chick that was supposedly at the location of the house while the murders were occurring. Very interesting case. I have a friend who loves true crime. She's going to come down here around Thanksgiving, and we're going to record an episode discussing that. So look forward to that. We're going to have an episode where we go over rules of evidence for lay people. So most people don't know how court cases work, is everything is evidence-based. So we'll kind of go over the procedures and how it officially you get stuff into a court case or not. Another note, Trump caravan. Look, I don't have a dog in this election, but man, I was running an errand the other day, and I don't know if this is a thing going around in the country, but like I saw this caravan of like shitty trucks that were jacked up and like vans and stuff with like hashtag save the children across the back windshield the other day, and they almost caused a massive pileup on I-10, and it really pissed me off. So that was in my notes. Please stop doing that, people. You have the right to express yourself, but if you cause other people harm or potential harm by trying to prove your point, you're being a fucking idiot. This is an accountability podcast. You know what that means? Are you even listening?
The accountability. I mean, I didn't.
Wait, are you even listening to me?
I was, but I thought it was a rhetorical question for the audience. I didn't know you were specifically talking to me. It sounded like a pretty impactful area.
Is this an accountability podcast?
But, yeah, but do you know what that means? And then you.
No, I'm asking you.
Do I know what an accountability podcast means? We're holding
yes.
ourselves and the others accountable to a standard that we set.
We hold our listeners accountable.
Yeah, and ourselves.
No, no. We're
Oh,
not
okay,
gonna do
okay.
that. We're lawyers. Come on, man. One of us is. Oh, also, we need some office clips. There's some great gold in there. I will send you the specific time. That was more of a personal note for the show. Oh, and the episode title is going to be "You Got to Fight for Your Right to Go to Jail for Your Client." Just so you know, because that is what we're going to get into now, which is this week. I was set for a case, set for trial on Monday, and it's a pretty big felony case. My client originally had a lawyer about a year and a half ago. He was in custody. He was arrested for this in like April of 2019, and he, had been in custody since until July of 2020, halfway through the coronavirus pandemic, before the judge finally cut his bond in half and put him on house arrest. So now, even though we're awaiting trial, he can't even be a tax-paying contributing member of society because he just has to stay at home. Still better than being in jail. But originally we were supposed to try this case last March of this year, and while he was still in custody, which is why I was pushing to go to trial. Because basically this case, they're alleging that he intended to burglarize a home and commit another felony, which was a sexual assault, and that he barged into a house and or didn't barge into a house, but rather he knocked on the door of the wrong house while he was completely fucked up on drugs. And essentially they opened the door and he kind of just fell into the house. And what ended up happening is there's a big discrepancy as to what went down. Basically, they're alleging that he whipped his penis out and that he was, threatening to harass them. But honestly, like, that doesn't make sense to me because, and I don't know, maybe I'll get some good feedback from my potential jurors out there for this, but like it's all about intent, right? So when you're trying to prove a crime, you have to intend to commit it. But my guy, he's a convicted felon. He's got a lot of priors. He's not a perfect dude. He has had drug issues in the past, and luckily he's like sober now. Like even while he was in jail, he was able to get clean. And he's got a freaking cross tattoo right in front of his forehead. So when I have a client like that, and he's got multiple convictions, so he's facing 25 to life if we roll the dice. So I've got a lot of weight on my shoulders, obviously, with that prospect coming up on you. And so what happened was he went to the wrong house. They alleged that he took his penis out and laid down on one of their beds in their rooms. I don't know. I haven't heard from the witnesses because the first time I'm going to get to cross-examine them is at trial. But honestly, it sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me because what ended up happening is that he got freaking beat up and robbed, and then they called the cops, and then the cops arrested him. So none of this case really made sense to me, but the fact that he is facing a lot of time, he's putting a lot of trust on me to sell that case, which is that he didn't intend to go in there and burglarize anyone. It was, if anything, it's a simple trespassing case. So I am forced on Monday. I get an email from the coordinator of the court, and they're the people that set all of the trials and the dates and stuff like that. And they're the people that you have to be. This is a really good lesson for young lawyers. They're the people that you need to be the nicest to. They are the secret to being a good lawyer, actually, is how you treat court staff. Because if you are nice to the coordinator, why is it on you? Okay, good. If you're nice to the coordinator, you will get a favorable. Generally, you're gonna it's gonna be way better in your interest to not piss them off because they control your life and when you go to trial and when you don't. So I got an email and she's like, the judge wants to pick a jury on this on Thursday. And so and where I mainly practice is a huge county. It's Houston. So right now they have these completely asinine protocols in place that are for COVID. So like I mentioned in the first episode how we can't really do anything when we don't have juries. The problem now is that we have juries, but they aren't diverse juries. The only people that we've been seeing come to court are largely white people, and that's a concern for us from the defense bar's perspective, because when you have a tainted jury pool, it gives you a little bit pause as to whether or not you want to roll the dice on 25 to life when you have that prospect of Black, brown, minority people scared to come to jury duty. And so I had to weigh the prospect of not only maintaining my clients, like every possible avenue for his rights to be protected. Like, I wanted to try this case. I'm not scared to try the case, but I am scared to try it under these conditions. And that's what I told the judge. But the judge was going to make me go to trial. On Monday, I had the impression that no continuance was going to be granted, because a couple of weeks ago at the pretrial date, she stated that she wasn't granting any COVID-19 motions and that I needed to be ready to go. And it didn't make any sense to me. This wasn't a murder. The guy's not in custody. He's on house arrest, on bond. He can, and like, it sucks because now he has to wait another 4 months. We did get the continuance granted, luckily, but I was almost faced with a scenario where I I had to call it's funny. I mentioned Gerald Goins. His lawyer is one of the top dogs in Houston, and she is incredible. And so she's actually part of the thing called the strike force that will come to lawyers' aids when they're held in contempt. And so I was faced with the prospect of going to jail this week, just because if the judge was going to force me to try the case under these conditions, then like no one in the defense bar has been the guinea pig to take a stand and just not partake in that. And so luckily I wasn't the guy who had to fall on that cross. Although I told you, I texted you, I said, Akash, what'd I text you about Thursday? Hold on, I can't hear you.
You said, can you come record? I'm gonna have to handcuff myself to a bench outside of outside of court this week.
I don't want to text my producer. I'm gonna have to handcuff myself to my client. But God damn it, I would. And I'm sorry. I accidentally sent an email asking for advice to this individual lawyer who is really good at helping lawyers. So people don't know, when you are a lawyer, like, I've been threatened to get held in contempt many times, if you guys can guess that. It's probably a record, honestly. I've got the great Robert Parnham, one of the best Harris County lawyers I've met, Bob Parnham. He told me always have a motion for a hearing ready to file in your briefcase. So whenever I go to court, I've always got a motion for a hearing, because when you are thrown in contempt, you can hand the handwritten motion to the clerk as they're dragging you into the jail cell, and the judge has to give you a hearing on the merits of holding you in contempt right there. A lot of lawyers don't know that. If you don't have that in your briefcase, you're behind people and you practice criminal law. Please get that motion in your briefcase. If you don't have it, email me. We'll get it to you. Anyway, you've got to be prepared to take a stand for your client. So I sent an email out to the entire listserv of the Houston bar on accident when I meant to email one person. This is something that I do. This is like my life. But I was just essentially like, hey, I'm just letting you know, like, I might need you Thursday for the following reasons. And if I need to handcuff myself to my client at a bench, I'm going to probably do that, and, have all the local news networks there to film my limp, lifeless body being dragged into the courtroom against my will. And I just wanted to make you aware of that. And then I got a bunch of responses from some rural lawyers that were like, hey, you big pussy, what the fuck is wrong with you? You need to be going to trial. Do your job. And I'm like, dude, you don't understand. If you practice out in rural Texas, like, everything is normal, hunky-dory, but it is not that way in the big cities right now. So it's been a very interesting week for the Law Dog. I was texting my mentors, and just like, they're like, man, you would, like, this is you. It always happens. Like, this kind of stuff happens to me, and it's hilarious because I don't desire these situations, but luckily the judge, she she heard the girlfriend thing and then was like, yeah, I'm granting this, because she knew like she was gonna be in the wrong if she didn't grant it. And like I told the DA, give me a good deal, bro. Like, come on, this is a circus. And he loves it, so he's not gonna do that. And it's fine, because that's the way that the system works. And unfortunately, now we have to wait 4 more months for justice for my client. But in the same breath, I'm giving him an opportunity for a fair trial, in my opinion. So it's been a very interesting week. And I mean, it's going to be tough, like as we go through this whole COVID
Why do you
thing
think?
throughout.
Why do you think his trial will be fairer in 4 months?
Well, I don't know. I think that it might even be the same. But that doing it under these conditions now, I mean, just wasn't going to do him any favors. So like he obviously was frustrated by this news, because I had to tell him, look, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. I can't, like, I want to try your case, but at the same breath, I want to try it under fair conditions, because you got to remember, we're picking a jury at NRG Stadium. Generally, you're picking a jury in a courtroom where everyone's sitting together, and there's like 4 rows of benches. And in a misdemeanor trial, generally they send 60 people into the room to pick 6 people from. And with a felony, they usually send in like 100 to pick 12. And what they've done now is they've separated everyone out, and they've given them like earphones and stuff. So, but you have to wear a mask. And like, you're in a freaking huge it's an NRG Stadium, which is where I took the bar exam. It's a huge like arena hall, like where the rodeo is. And so you're yelling, or you're talking into a mic. And it's not normal. It's not normal at all, because like I can't have the same rapport and camaraderie I have with people if they are all, number one, kind of scared to be there, or like hesitant just based on how everything looks. They did try to make it a little bit normal. Like once you actually pick the jury, they go back to the courthouse, and the jury sits out in the gallery, which is very bizarre, because you're not looking at them while you're. It just depends on the court and how they do it. But there's a lot of Sixth Amendment and Eighth Amendment issues that are ripe for appeal. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what goes on with that, and how, the people that are going to trial and taking a chance right now, I don't know what's going to happen on appeal. We got a really solidly like Republican appellate system. So I think that they're going to uphold all of these, like, hey, this is good enough kind of thing. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be an interesting time, because I mean, yeah, like you said, when it comes around to March and we're maybe dealing with the same thing or something worse potentially, it's going to make it that much harder to do my job. So I don't know. We'll
No,
hopefully.
it was really helpful that you clarified how important the jury's pre-frame coming into the interaction is to the
Absolutely,
result,
yeah. I mean,
right?
they're coming into a massive warehouse now where it's not normal. It's not
Right.
a
Their state
courtroom.
matters. Their state before they enter the interaction matters to the overall outcome of
Absolutely. I
what they
want people
pick.
to be
So
comfortable and like in a laughing mood, and this
that's
is
crazy. So
not
has
facilitating
anyone
for
looked
that.
at the numbers? Are more people getting unfavorable jury verdicts nowadays, or what?
I don't know. I haven't heard. So in Harris County, I haven't actually heard of anyone that's had to go to verdict yet. That's why I was scared. I was going to be the guinea pig. I don't want to be that person. You never want to be first. That's your law license on the line, for Christ's sake. So you've got to you have to make decisions that protect your client, but you also are thinking about yourself, because it's like, this is how you earn income. You need to consider that. And so you're caught between a rock and a hard place. And it is part of the job sometimes. And I signed up for it. It's all good, baby. I think that honestly, if anything, it's bringing light to the fact that we've got to figure out a way to make it somewhat normal during COVID, because if this continues on for another year, then I don't know how it's going to be sustainable, because we're going to have so much backlog that there's no way we're going to be able to catch up. It just isn't going to be possible. So I hope that between now and next year, we have some miracle man who comes up with a congruent plan for us. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll just keep piecemealing it. But like, I think that it was important for people to understand that while juries are back in some counties, they aren't normal. It's not the same system. It's not something where if your life was on the line, you'd probably feel comfortable going on. So I think that's important to get out there to the people that, like that was, that was my week this week, is that I was just figuring out how I was going to look in orange again. And, it's not really my color. Thanks for the half laugh. Okay, let's get into the Law Dog Meme Minute. Perfect. Okay. Welcome to Law Dog's Meme Minute. I wanted to kind of bring you guys into the fold as far as how I pick a jury, because a lot of the times I'll just throw up a keynote presentation and ask them questions based on how they react. So I want to put a little trigger warning in here for people, because what I'm about to do is I'm going to use the I screenshotted a bunch of memes that I saw on Tuesday night from the election, shared across my Instagram, and I more saw the opinions from my liberal friends. I don't have many Trump friends that publicly support him because it is unsafe. So I saw like one post that was supportive of Trump. And other than that, I want to get into, though, like some of the things that we're seeing, because it ties into some of the stuff I was talking on my second episode. So for all my bleeding hearts out there, I love you guys, because the memes you're about to see, these are the things that I would put up, and I would say, who agrees with this? And everyone that raised their hands, that's the people I want on my jury, because they're very sympathetic and empathetic, and they vote with their hearts and not their wallets. But I'm going to go into why we're in the state we are right now. Okay, so here's what we know so far. This is clear. It is Friday after the election, and we still don't have a clear winner, right? There's not been an announcement as to who the president is. Is that correct?
Everything is an apparent winner. So there's no everything.
Wait,
there's
what?
No,
what is an apparent winner?
yeah, that's what so there's a projected winner and an apparent winner. I've had the news on all. So they have
projected winner and an apparent winner. What does that mean?
I think it was because of the remember during the Bush Gore election, they predicted Florida early, and then that had something to do with the outcome. So they don't want to fucking predict anything until.
Were you even born then?
Almost. That was a couple. Of course I was. That was like 10 years ago.
All right, well, I remember 2000. But we all loved each other. 9/11 hadn't happened yet. Now everyone fucking hates each other. Okay, so we woke up and we still don't. These are all from my 90 Day Fiance fans out there. We're gonna do an episode on that. I promise you. If we have any 90 Day fans, my girlfriend's in love with this show. I never knew about this show, but it's about a show where these Americans date like these foreigners, and they go to their country and meet them, and then if they like them and they work out, then they're gonna bring them to America, and they have 90 days to get married. Hit your hip. All right. So you can see that it's not the 2 slide. I'm not sharing the screen where I've got 2 slides, right?
No, right.
What do you see right now?
The fat guy.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. So, everyone might have seen the sign that looks like this. But I made my own sign. And I had my buddy, he owns a t-shirt shop like 4 blocks away, and I had him print this up for me, but I'm not going to actually put it in my yard. My girlfriend would never allow that. But in this house, we believe, and for the people at home that can't see this, the first meme was a picture of the United States with crayon and blue and red and yellow drawn all over it. The second slide was Ed from 90 Day Fiance looking like trash when he wakes up, and it says, waking up on November 4th and still not knowing who won the election. This says, in this house, we believe you'll think we're good people if we repeat the correct platitudes loud enough. Thinking is hard. Conformity is everything. And I think this is a good little example for some of the signs I've seen in my neighborhood, because this is the sign that they should be putting up in their yard instead of like science is real, blah, blah, blah. This is kind of the more correct sentiment that a lot of these people that I've seen on Tuesday night, when they thought it was going to go Trump's way, started to really blast out their memes. So let's take a look. Next slide is called What Gaslighting Looks Like. And gaslighting is a form of abuse and manipulation concentrated on making someone doubt their reality. And there's kind of like 9 ways that you can gaslight someone. You can deny they said or did something even when you have proof. They accuse you of doing things that you know themselves have done. They turn others against you to take away your support system. They tell you that you are crazy. You are never right. You constantly feel like you have to defend reality. Your trust in yourself, intuition erodes. You always feel confused about whether you're on good terms, and you're not allowed to have feelings, and you find yourself collecting proof things happen so you can reassure yourself. So this is kind of what and then the next slide is about logical fallacies. And like, so the way that I would this is kind of how I present stuff. I'm just basically owning all of our virtue signalers in this presentation, but this is kind of how I throw up presentations for juries, just so y'all have a little bit of an idea. But here's some classic logical fallacies, right, that we see every day in the media. Name calling, ad hominem, responding to tone, contradiction, counter argument, refutation, refuting the central point. So I saw a few memes on Tuesday night, and honestly, guys, like, this really saddened me. I truly, I felt the need to speak on this just because, like, we've got to stop. Like, if you see people sharing this stuff, you need to call them out at this point, because they're just gaslighters. And unfortunately, they think they have carte blanche and everyone's on their side to say it. But 69 million fucking people voted for the president. And that's something that people need to, like, respect, is that they have a fucking different opinion than them, and that they voted with their wallets and not their hearts. And, like, so let's take this one. All right, don't tell someone you love them, then vote for someone who will harm them. Let's break down the language in this meme. Don't tell someone you love them, then vote for someone who will harm them. So clearly this is guilting people who are voting for Trump, right? Because you're harming them by simply voting for a man. And I think that like posting this is dangerous, because we're getting into like a maybe like a brown shirt Marxist mentality when we have a bunch of memes like this. Like, for instance, the meme on the left here says, no matter how this turns out, the closest of this election affirms that America is a racist country, period. Most white people in America could care less about integrity, morality, character, equality, liberty, or justice, only about preserving white supremacy. And the other meme says, vote as if your brother is gay, your house is on fire, your skin is not white, your son is transgender, your spouse is an immigrant, your water is unsafe to drink, your neighborhood is flooded, your parents need medical care, your child is a victim of gun violence, your best friend is a veteran with PTSD, your sister is a missing Indigenous woman, your daughter is a sexual assault survivor. Vote as if your life depended on it. Like, what the fuck is this? I mean, Jesus, could you get any more shameful? Like, what if what if I have a gay brother and my house is on fire and I still voted for Trump? Like, I don't know. My life depends on it. Fuck. I mean, this is classic gaslighting, guys. Like, we've got to call people out that share this stuff, because if you don't, like, they're gonna win. Okay. It's just simply like they think they have carte blanche to post this Marxist propaganda. It's pretty hilarious. Here's some more. I voted in hopes of not having 4 more years of an openly racist, sexist, xenophobic, fascist president who doesn't pay taxes or believe in science or care about the lives of Americans.
Science with a capital S.
69 million of your fellow Americans are all racist, sexist, xenophobic, fascist. So obviously we need to take up all their guns and, like, take away their ability to defend themselves and their rights. And literally we just, like, they are fucking savages. And here's my personal favorite one. I read a post over the weekend which said something like, after the election is over, your neighbors will still be your neighbors no matter who is president, and we'll still have to live and work together. So what's important is that we choose to be loving and caring humans no matter who you vote for. It's a nice sentiment to make yourself feel better about your choice, maybe so you can sleep at night. But at the end of the day, we'll remember the ones who chose not. We'll remember the ones chose to support someone who does not value all lives, not women's lives, not LGBTQ lives, not immigrant lives, not black lives, not refugee lives, not indigenous lives, not lives of people of color. The lives claimed are forever altered by the pandemic. The ones who chose someone who condones and incites violence, bullying, incessant lying, someone who does not believe in science. This is great. Well, remember those who decided they don't care actually about all lives, only their own. So be sure. So sure, be caring and loving. Just know
We'll remember that. Funny, bro.
I saw that one so much, and it's like, so wait. Trump doesn't care about gays, immigrants, blacks, but why are all these people voting for him? I mean, he got a huge turnout of black and Hispanic votes this year, and so that argument doesn't hold any fucking water. I mean, give me a break. Like, this is the thing, guys, is you can't shame people for having opinions, and that was my point about the podcast on election day. And here's another one. This is Bob. He voted Republican. This is Bob's friend Sally. Sally voted Democrat. Bob and Sally are still friends because Bob and Sally are both, and it says adults, but then it crosses out adults, and then it says white because Bob and Sally are both white. So the policies Bob favors don't hurt Sally. Isn't that convenient for them? And then here's another one that says, this Trump supporter has been collecting bullets for over 20 years to stop anyone trying to take away our rights of the Constitution. How is this not terrorism? So here we have like this classic, I see this a lot with liberals, and I love you, bleeding hearts. I love you guys. I need your support. And I honestly, you're not going to like listening to me because I am going to call you out on your virtue signaling, and I'm sorry, but it's just, it's needed at this point, because like, and the people that blindly support Trump need to be called out too, obviously. And we're going to get into that. But like this stuff, collecting bullets for over 20 years, trying to take away our rights of the Constitution, well, that is actually a right of the Constitution to collect bullets for 20 years. It's not terrorism, in fact. It's a constitutional amendment afforded you, afforded you in the Second Amendment. And like a lot of people have a problem with that. And like I think that they think that if the Democrats get in office, they're just going to take all the guns away. It's never going to happen, people. You're going to have to come and take them. Like, and they better figure out a way to just wipe everyone out without the need for, gun battles, because that's never going to happen in America. So this whole like socialist Marxist push, like that all of you guys are dreaming about, is never going to happen here. I'm sorry, guys. Like, it's just not. There's too many people that are going to push back against that. And so unless you like, I don't know how because they're not going to be able to do it in a way that's copacetic. So let's go into a couple of the ones I saw for pro-Trump. Very few. This one says, I'm voting for sanctity of human life, the unborn child, fundamental right to life, medical freedom, religious liberty, the essential church, competitive health care, and patient choice, school choice, equal opportunity for all in the American dream, freedom of speech, a strong military, funded police, free enterprise, deregulation, lower taxes, Israel, the Second Amendment.
Israel.
Of course that's in there. You've got to support them. Private stewardship of the environment, ending human trafficking, secure borders, traditionalist judges, and restraining courts, law and order, liberty and justice for all. And if you vote differently than me, I love you just the same. And so like, I see all the people who put this down, and like that is, it's not as vitriolic as the ones that are like guilting and shaming you, right? They're just explaining that's what they believe in. But also it would be triggering for all of my bleeding hearts. So I do understand that. They probably never even saw one like this because they don't have any of the friends that disagree with them. But there's another one that I saw that my buddy shared, and this is the same guy that's been begging me to come on the podcast. So when I eventually have him on, he wants to talk about military true crime. We've got to stop ostracizing people for their political beliefs. Argue, converse, debate, even fight a little. But I'm an American before I'm a donkey or an elephant, and that's how I treat other people. We're not Crips or Bloods. We're Americans. Let's start fucking acting like it. So that tweet, I liked that one. But there's only one that I saw the entire night that really made me happy and really made me smile. And I'm glad it was my 14-year-old goddaughter. And thank God for her, in this world, because she's a shining ray of light. And like, she has not had the best example for a godfather. I very much put a lot of faith and credit in her parents who tasked me with the responsibility at 18. That was a huge mistake on their part at the time. Luckily, they did not perish in the last decade. So I have set every wrong example for her, but I'm also working on setting the right ones. So that being said, she posted this, and I love her so much. And if you guys don't have someone like this in your life, you need to find somebody who's going to post shit like this. If you are my friend and you support Trump, you are my friend. If you are my friend and you support Biden, you are my friend. If you feel the need to degrade those who feel differently than you, maybe we are not friends. And this one only is the only meme I saw that really made me like smile, because this is what needs to be shared. People feel differently than you in America. Okay, it's what makes us great. And like, I saw this made me laugh out loud. It's a meme, and it says the only thing the establishment truly fears, and it's like this redneck with an American flag tank top and a and a Confederate flag hat with guns, and he's bumping fists with a black guy with dreadlocks with Malcolm X on his shirt and guns in his back, and they're both bumping fists, and they're about to go fuck with the establishment. So like, this entire thing is essentially like how I would pick. So like, this presentation really is how I'd pick a jury. Like, it would be, can we stop sharing the screen?
Yeah, the
You got it back on
reactions
me?
to it.
You got it back on me? Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, yes. So I would throw up those memes. I would throw up one at a time, and I would say, who agrees with this? And then immediately I know who my bleeding hearts are in the jury pool. So those are the people I want on my jury. I want everyone who's gonna like consider compassion, and like, I want all of like the conservative, like hang 'em high people out, and that's who the government's looking for. So it's just that game, right? Where we're looking for different kinds of people, because I'm not looking to sell 12 people. I'm looking to sell two or three.
So are you
Two or three people who will convince the rest of the jury that they're never going to vote to convict my guy, and that there's no way they'd do it. They'd rather die, and they'll die for me in that jury room. That's who I'm looking to select out of the 100 people that walk into that room, is one or two or three people that are going to go to war for me in the jury room. That's it.
That's awesome, bro. That's
I think
really...
people that don't understand that, like, so when people that don't use visual aids are doing themselves a massive disservice, because when you get up and you're just like talking to the jury, that's boring, and like, people don't have something to look at, it doesn't stimulate their mind. You're not going to get the reactions, or you're not going to get, because like, when people don't say anything when they're getting picked for a jury, you generally are predispositioning yourself to get picked because we don't know about your opinions. So we just figure maybe you're on our side or maybe you're not. But what happens is like, the judge, once you stand up, so the DA gets their time, I get my time. And basically, once we're done talking to the jury, we go back and we have a packet of information with all of the potential jurors before they come in. And it has like basic information about them, like their profession, their names, what their spouse does. So what I'm always looking for, cops, teachers, scientists, engineers, depending on the case, is who I'm trying to pick, the person, right? So if you have a really complicated technical case, you're going to want maybe an engineer who's going to be able to explain your side, but you don't want an engineer who's going to fight for their side. So it's very difficult. It's a psychology experiment when you pick a jury. That's where you win and lose a case, is picking in a jury. Because
I think a key part about what you were talking about is the fact that by using the visual aids, you're, instead of you know how people always say, watch what they do, not what they say. You can't get as clear of a picture in the inner workings of what someone's, which way they'll tend whenever it comes down to it, just by talking to them. But by seeing
right,
their
and
first
that's how,
response,
like, so I'm selling my case without giving them. You're not allowed to present any of the facts of your case when you pick the jury. So what I do is I drop hints about what the case is going to be about. So I would ask a question like, for instance, about the case I talked about this week. Hypothetically, out there, people, if someone barged into your house and was completely screwed up on drugs, would you automatically assume they're trying to burglarize you? Right then, I've now got every single person thinking about, wow, what's this case about? And why is the government doing this? So like, just the way you frame it.
do you have to get your questions approved before you ask them?
Fuck no. Better to ask them for forgiveness and permission, because what they're going to do is the DA will just object, and that makes it look shady because the jury wants to know the answer. They want to hear, they want to have their opinion heard. So it's gamesmanship, right? There's a lot of times where I don't object on a DA's line of questioning because he's either digging himself a hole, even though I know it's clearly like hearsay testimony that I'm getting as a response. Like, I don't object to like I do object like obnoxiously, if you guys could guess that, to the point like in a case where I know it's going to go to appeal, you have to, and I'm feeling like I'm going to lose, which is rare. But in those cases, like you've got to object to everything just to give yourself a shot on appeal. But for the most part, I try to let the natural flow of a trial kind of go, because people, the jury like wants to hear a story. They're not there to hear the evidence. They want to hear the story. And so the way that you present evidence and questioning in a trial is boring as fuck. Like you only get 2 opportunities to do a narrative like basis of your case, which is opening statement and closing statement. And so I pretty much put all of my case into my opening statement because I want them to already believe my side of the story before they hear any evidence. And so I do that by doing these memes, and I ask questions that are hypothetical like that, so that I can get a really good idea of what does this person believe? What's their background like? It's hard to get in people's heads, but there's some commonalities amongst professions and stuff and like another thing is a huge one is race. We'll get into an episode. I'm going to have one of my black attorney friends on. He's going to discuss, we're going to go over race-based stuff. Like, I think that's going to be really helpful for the public because people think like if I have a black defendant, I automatically want black jurors. But there are people, especially older African Americans, that like punish younger African Americans who screw up. So you got to be real careful sometimes about just automatically assuming that you have somebody on your side just because of their skin color. And that's like a huge mistake that lawyers make. And, we'll get into that and we'll talk about that. But I think that, when you pick a jury, you've got to be creative. You've got to have visual aids. You've got to have kind of a way to command the room because the DAs they still use PowerPoint. PowerPoint is boring.
But I mean, also, I think it's important to know that very rarely can you actually really persuade someone of something, because people are
I'm not going to change their minds, but right. I want them to shift their realities for a day or
exactly.
two. So
people
put them in my shoes.
Everything in your reality is just confirms the narrative that's already existing in your head, right? And everything that doesn't fit with that narrative of how you believe the world works, you just don't even, your brain just completely.
And that's why people that don't have any friends or whatever and only have their phones only see the world as a chaotic, terrible place. Like if they had real friends and stuff, like they would be fine. And
exactly.
They wouldn't feel the need to tweet all this bullshit.
Right. So whenever you're picking the jury, it's really important that like you're not trying to pick people with the potential for you to convince them. You're trying to pick people who already believe what you're about to, you know what I'm saying, before you even start the story.
They've already got my case. They're already fighting for me.
Exactly.
And I'm trying to hide the DA from knowing which ones I want, because when you pick, you get to challenge people for cause, right? So if you state that you can't be fair or biased in the case, then you're automatically disqualified. So everyone's like, nah, I'm fair. I'm biased. I'm not biased. I'm pretty fair. No, you're not. Half the people that walk in there are looking to just have.
You said anyone who says they are fair or biased or disqualified?
Anyone that is not fair or biased is legally disqualified. So that is a technical legal element to disqualify a potential juror. And there's 2, which is that they won't follow the law, or that they won't be fair and prejudiced about the case. So you've got, so then other lawyers will try and nuke the jury pool by like putting up a set of facts wherein the exact crime happens, but it happens in another county, and you see which people would convict despite that. And then you can disqualify them for that reason. So you can, in cases where like, if you don't want to go to trial, I'll present a scenario, like in Texas, for instance, there's this thing called the 3822 exception. I think that's what it is. Fuck, I should probably make sure, but it's the fruit of the poisonous tree. And that basically means that I'll say to the jury pool, who here believes that if someone gets pulled over for an invalid reason, that even if the officer finds something in the trunk that is illegal, a dead body, drugs, whatever it is, you still have to find him not guilty if you find that he did not have probable cause or reasonable suspicion to stop him in the first place. And the people that I can get knocked off a jury pool just that by answering no is incredible. So like sometimes I keep that in my back pocket for when I want to, if I don't feel like I have a good jury, I'll just try and like get a new pool. I'll knock that. That's kind of called a nuclear option for lawyers, but essentially it makes jurors contemplate the proposition that you can't use evidence that is procured illegally. So if an officer pulls you over for speeding, but in fact you were 5 below the limit, then they cannot use any evidence that they find in your trunk against you because they didn't have original purpose to pull you over. Now, what they've done now is they've gotten real crafty about this thing called mistake of law. And the Supreme Court has covered for these cops for decades now, where they have all of these special exceptions and stuff. And so like that, when we talk about police reform, that is the stuff that we need to get into, which is, how we reform the way that actual policing is done can make it way more accountable. So I think that, once you lay it out for the jury, you basically, you're presenting the evidence in the form of questions, right? So the DA has to ask these open-ended questions, and then when I get to cross-examine, I get to ask leading questions. So I'm like, well, you didn't actually do this, did you? And I can say that, but like when you're asking your witness, you can only ask who, what, where, when, why questions, which is an interesting thing that people may not have known. So you can't lead a witness when it's your witness and it's favorable to your case. So,
But you are allowed to lead someone that's not your witness.
yeah, isn't that weird?
That's awesome.
And like in Texas, you can discuss, like, so it used to be that all of the subject of cross-examination was limited to the scope of the direct, but now you can ask them about anything in Texas, which is great because like I'll just subpoena their internal affairs records and I'll start asking them about how they lied, 5 years ago on a case and why they're not a liar now. And so like when I do that, it opens up the jury's minds. And so like in opening, I'm like, you're going to hear some dirty deets on the cop. The prosecutor objects, but I still have it in their mind. And even though the officer or the court will always sustain the objection and tell the jury to disregard it, they still heard it. So like you've got, different little tricks and strategies that you're always doing to get into these people's minds, man, because that's what you got to do. Because like if you got some lazy ass lawyer, the DA could just get up there and be like, no, he did this, this, and this. And, if you get up there like, no, he didn't, like, that's not a very good defense, especially if your guy has priors and you can't have him testify. Like people don't understand, like you're taking a big risk and people usually want to hear from the defendant. Like when I talk to most juries and I don't have my client testify, they're like, man, I really wanted to hear his side of the story. And I had to be like, well, I couldn't put him up there because you would have found out he had like 2 other coke convictions, right? Or like something ridiculous. But usually when you don't have priors, like it's a lot easier to go and testify on your own behalf in your case. But like I've already presented to the jury that you're a prior criminal, you're generally not going to have a lot of credibility. So that is a big consideration. And so, yeah, I think that like using memes, using new media, being different, being goofy. I'm not a square personality. I've got life in me, so that's not common for our profession. It's a bunch of dinosaurs that are like, we don't want to, like, oh, this sucks. Like everything is negative. Fuck that, man. Like I'm going to lead the new way into this. Like we're going to defend people's rights and have a good time doing it. Like that's what I do. And like, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be useful for my clients. What I promise them is I don't leave any like stone unturned. When I go to trial on a case, I've got to have some angles, especially if the facts aren't favorable to me. So it truly is like a learning experience. And the only way you build this is by doing it, and trial by fire, and like, you don't read about it. You can listen to me talk about it, but it's not going to make you get up and be better in front of people. The only way to do it is by trying cases. So unfortunately, it's tough right now to even do that, because as much fun content it would have been for this episode to have been me talking about getting dragged into court in handcuffs, it honestly would have been so much more of a pain in the ass for that to happen. So I'm glad that it didn't. And as much content as I'm denying the viewers for for just like not letting that go down, I'm sorry, people. Like you've got to protect your clients, but you've got to protect yourselves. And so like I can't fight for my other clients if I'm in jail. I'm not doing them any favors. So like you got to draw a fine line there of when to throw down for your clients, but also like pray that a judge is gonna like see some reason. And luckily this one did. So yeah, honestly, I think that this is a good place to wrap up this episode. I think that we've kind of touched on a bunch of different stuff today, giving y'all a little bit of an insight into how I pick a jury, just by shaming all of you virtue signalers today. And I'm sorry that I'm not sorry for doing that. And I love you guys, and I need y'all's support. Please make memes making fun of me. I honestly would be sad and remiss if you didn't. If I'm putting my face out there, I expect it at this point. So, um, that being said, though, if you're gonna rate me, just do like 5 stars, please. No negative. That would be bad. So
We look forward to your profanity-filled response.
yes, leave. If you leave a funny review, I'll read it on air. So, please, we are going to have our first guest next week. I know I've been promising that, which is great. As long as I keep promising stuff, you guys will never know if it actually is going to come out. I'll be
Keep them on their toes.
It's like 3 months later, we got our first guest, episode 31. No, guys, we're gonna get him out there. It's just we're figuring all this out. We're getting better, and that's another thing is like give us your feedback. Only positive though, nothing negative. We will only be taking positive feedback, and anything that glorifies me or makes me look better, like that's all appreciated. And honestly, I think that is needed. It's the law dog way. And so we've got to stay together in that regard. And honestly, guys, I no matter what happens with this election stuff, and I'll end it on this, it doesn't fucking matter. Okay. Like, I know no one listening to this is very powerful, right? Like, there's no one out there that's like, oh, this kid's telling us all the truth. No, guys, like, this is just one opinion. And I'm just trying to provide funny content for y'all and something different. And I just hope that y'all realize that it's going to be a long winter. We are going to have protracted legal battles on both sides, no matter what happened. If it was Trump that was ahead or Biden was ahead, they were going to fucking file lawsuits on each other. I wanted to quickly share this news story that I found, and this kind of ties into the stuff that I was talking about on my election day episode, which was, the perpetuation of the status quo. So let me pull up real quick here. Kosh, make sure that you can see my screen.
Affirmative.
Good?
Yep.
Okay, so this was an article that came out on the New York Times on August the 8th. And it says the voting will end November 3rd. The legal battle probably won't. And so even in this article, so the New York Times predicted all of this. And they kind of we should have known this was all coming, but they even state the possibility of an ugly November. This is back in August, mind you. The possibility of an ugly November and perhaps even December and January has emerged more starkly in recent days as President Trump complains that the election will be rigged, and Democrats accuse him of trying to make that a self-fulfilling prophecy. So then they even go down and they're like the clash is vastly that clash has been vastly complicated this year by the challenge of holding a national election in the middle of a deadly pandemic, with a greater reliance on mail-in voting that could prolong the counting in a way that turns election day into election week or election month. And then essentially they're like, they even put here in this paragraph, if the candidate who appears ahead on election night ends up losing later on, he said, it will fuel, and this is Richard H. Pildes, a constitutional scholar at New York University School of Law, and he quote says, I have no doubt the situation will be explosive, because if the candidate who appears ahead on election night ends up losing later on, it will fuel suspicion, conspiracy theories, and polarization. So, of course, here we are with conspiracy theories, polarization, just as predicted. But here's some good news, guys. Where gridlock status quo persists, people. The stock market went fucking skyrocketing. That's all you guys need to know about why nothing's ever going to actually change. Investors
Can you explain that further?
So basically, like, this article is Bloomberg, and it states divided government provides a breathing a sigh of relief for big pharmaceutical companies. The fact that the Republicans are holding the Senate and increasing their votes in the House is giving business comfort that there's not going to be any dramatic change. Great. Just what we needed, dramatic change. You're looking at a divided government, mostly continuation of the status quo. And from the perspective of pharma or managed care, honestly, that's pretty good. So
why is a divided government better for pharma?
Because they get to continue making money. There's no changes that would come. And that's honestly, no matter who wins the White House, if the Senate's controlled by McConnell, then he's not going to let anything get through. So any sort of agenda that Biden tried to push forward would have to be a centrist agenda and any sort of judicial nominations that he put forward have to be centrist for his cabinet if he has a Republican candidate.
My favorite part about the U.S. government is how the founding fathers went out of their way to make any sort of change almost fucking impossible. Like,
it's hard on purpose.
It was the checks and balances. Like, for example, in other countries, as soon as one party gets ahead, the leader of that party is prime minister, and then they just shove a shit ton of legislation out, and then it's just drastic changes here and there. The United States,
man, we drag our feet in America. It's the status
you can't
quo.
get anything done, but that's a good thing. Like, we're not as I feel like we're not.
Yeah, look, but it's a good thing, and it's a bad thing for our hungry and our poor people. It's a good thing for the rich. It's great. It's great for the rich. Everything will stay kind of the same. So look, that's the thing. Is that either if Biden or Trump wins, the rich people still fucking run the show, guys.
I don't think so. I personally don't believe that any sort of change that happens too quickly is sustainable, bro. So because eventually it always reverts back to the norm. So if it's like any sort of drastic change, things always, like, the pendulum always swings back the other way eventually. Whereas for any sort of sustained long-term growth or change or progress, it has to happen over time through discussion, exactly like the stuff we were talking about, the people posting their memes, but not.
It's like stop the gaslighting, stop the shaming, stop the guilting. Just have a conversation. That's the way they want to fight the war, then you're gonna lose, okay? Because you're gonna lose the way. If you think you can just shut up someone else because they have a political opinion, you're gonna lose.
Especially, and I hate coming off like I'm like a super conservative. I'm not, bro. But especially like liberals, they love just being entitled in sort of a lot of arguments. Like, oh, do you not care about people? Like, no.
Yeah, well, they're like, you support fascism. Like, they make a lot of presumptions, and that's okay. They're very upset about this man who is kind of like a crazy individual, and he's on their television screens all the time, and they're addicted to hating him. And so I get it. Like, it's understandable if you actually cared about what Trump said. But a lot of people don't. They care about what is happening in their bank accounts,
dude.
And
but
they
again,
care.
It goes back to the don't look at what he says, look at what he does. He doesn't actually do shit. He just
stirs
the
up the
entire
pot.
time golfing. Like, it's okay that, you know what I'm saying, he's not. Is he
and Obama did the same. He golfed a lot too, man. Exactly. And that's the thing is, like, they don't do as much as they think they don't do as much as we think they do. And until people realize that, then I don't know what else to tell them. Like, yeah, guys. So I just wanted to end it on that. Like, just love each other, people. Fucking get together. Talk to someone you disagree with. Like, make that your homework for this week. Is to not just assume something about someone who voted differently than you, but maybe send them an Instagram message and be like, hey, look, I love you as a friend, and I'm just maybe wondering, like, why do you feel this way? And then maybe you get on the same page and start to see that it's just different factions of rich people dividing us. And, like, until they do, it's not going to change. But I hope that I think that people really are waking up to it. And so it gives me hope. And I see what you can't negate 69 million people's voices and their votes. And like, if you try to do that, you're setting yourself up to just get gaslit yourself. And so honestly, before the conservatives kind of turn back on you and gaslight the fuck out of you, which they probably are wanting to do, I don't think that's going to happen. But it's like, these people need to stop this virtue signaling bullshit. Like, you're typing all this stuff out on devices made by slave labor. So, okay, we're all hypocrites. And you've got to realize that we have it fucking way too easy in America. The poorest people have phones and internet and televisions. Like, they don't have to go and search for water and food and clean their huts. All right. Like, this is perspective, people. You live in the nicest place in the world, okay? And you've got to realize that no matter what your situation is, it's probably better off than somebody that's in Sudan or whatever. So let's keep that in perspective. Let's love each other. And let's come back next week for a kick-ass fucking episode. Come back. Texas Law Dogs got you covered right here. Episode 5 next week. First guest. Love you guys. See you next week.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Texas Law Dog Podcast. Next week we've got our first guest finally coming on to the show. We have a special bonus Halloween video episode that we released on YouTube, so you can go ahead and click on my Instagram profile at TXLawDog to go ahead and get the link to that, and be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, or follow, or don't. But if you would, that would be really great. So, yeah, love you guys. Thank you for the dozen of you that are currently listening to this. And if you're enjoying the content thus far, I'd only ask that you please share it with 2 people. And that would really go a long way in helping me get this thing off the ground. So, thank you guys. I love y'all. See y'all next week.